First of all, good morning, everyone. Hope the second day of this wonderful Global Digital Summit 2025 is off to a great start. It was wonderful to follow the events of yesterday. Congratulations to all of you for kicking off what is creating a lot of buzz and excitement all around the institution. And I'm very excited to be here this morning. And I'm particularly excited to delve into a part of digital that is close to my heart, something I see as I travel across a lot of the countries we work in, a lot of the clients we work with, which is the topic of resilience and digital technology, a very interesting intersection. And I'm going to start by giving or recalling an example that I think put the resilience at the center of digital. Do you remember last July, there was a minor software update, minor one, but it actually triggered what some people call the worst cyber event in history, with crippling over 8 million computers and disrupting industries worldwide. It impacted hospitals, financial institutions, air travel, and news networks. And let's just bring that a bit closer to home where our clients are. Telemedicine programs serving rural patients in Morocco came to a halt. Merchants in Senegal couldn't process payments. And a major hospital in Abuja, in fact, was left scrambling without access to patient files and unable to schedule surgeries. In other words, lives and businesses were turned upside down across the world by what seemed to be a harmless, minor software update. I think this single incident highlights so well how reliant we have become on digital technologies in almost every impact of our lives, and why the resilience of our digital ecosystems has become as important as our ability to prepare for and recover from things like natural disasters and earthquakes and floods. But what do we really mean when we talk about digital resilience? And how do we get it? In this context, we mean, of course, both resilience of digital infrastructure and ecosystems, which means keeping it available, secure, and reliable. And we mean resilience through digital tech. And by that, we mean using it to strengthen resilience across economies and communities. And that's really the dual approach of our digital work here at the bank. And to delve deeper into this, I'm delighted to be joined by two real trailblazers in this field. Nigeria's Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Mr. Bosun Tijani. Thank you for being here with us. And Mr. Lance Pierce, who's the CEO for NetHope, who brings firsthand experience in navigating digital resilience and uncertainty. Minister, I'm going to start with you.
That's right.
This is going to be, just a good exchange with some Q&A among us, but I think it will illustrate the issues of resilience. You're leading Nigeria's efforts to expand digital connectivity and innovation. Could you share with us what are some of the government of Nigeria's recent measures to ensure the resilience of digital infrastructure? And how are you involving the private sector to make sure that the resilience of the overall ecosystem is ensured?
Thank you so much, Anna. Good morning, everyone. I think allow me to start by painting a picture of why we now think resilience is absolutely important in everything we do when it comes to digital. I was appointed in August 2023 to supervise a sector that contributes anywhere between 16 to 18% to the economy of Nigeria. That's quite significant. If you follow the story of digital in Nigeria as well, since the full liberalization of the sector in 1999, it became a sector that actually probably the largest on the African continent when it comes to investments into the digital sector. So when I came in, we decided that for a country that is growing significantly, average age is 17.9, that there's absolutely no way we can achieve our objective if we don't continue to invest in digital infrastructure. So we started a program with your colleagues at the bank to put together an investment that is worth $2 billion into 90,000 kilometers of fiber optic network in the country. Because the country already has 8 submarine cables. So we see an opportunity to truly drive up meaningful connectivity in the country. We also started investing in a technology talent accelerator because we see the need to train people to help us power the use of technology locally, but also to become a net exporter of talent. Then came March 2024. There was the submarine cable cut in West Africa, for those who follow. And quite a number of countries in West Africa actually had significant downtime. And as a young minister, I was faced with a question of banking apps not working, government platforms not working, businesses being down. How do you manage this kind of situation? If we want to keep investing in getting more people online and getting more of our services online, then a day of submarine calls can actually put down the entire economy because we're shifting everything to digital. So it became an important issue for me, which was what I then picked up, engaged the International Telecommunications Union. And today we now have an international advisory body which is responsible for subsea cable resilience in the world, where we're coming up with standards and helping countries to understand how to manage redundancy when you face this issue. Immediately, the other thing we decided to do was to declare all telecommunications infrastructure in Nigeria as national critical infrastructure, which means they're now protected to the same level as military infrastructure. Wow. Because we understand that if anything happens to this infrastructure, then our whole economy will be down. If you fast forward to today, I think we've probably seen 4 or 5 new subsea cable cuts in the world, even in Europe, causing disruptions to economies. And it's clear that as we talk about the future of the world where digital is at the middle, we have to be thinking sustainability, which is also why today in Nigeria, we're looking at how do we start to power over 40,000 telecoms towers that we have in the country with cleaner form of energy, because it's also not sustainable to use diesel to power these telecommunications infrastructure. And without finding sustainable and affordable ways to power them, then the future is also not guaranteed. And lastly, for a country that is extremely ambitious about artificial intelligence, energy is an issue. On one hand, we have to be able to make a case for countries who are manufacturing GPUs to be able to allow us to procure this important equipment. But on the other hand, we have to find better form of energy to also power them as well, which is why the country today is also now prioritizing local manufacturing of batteries because we have a significant stock of lithium in Nigeria. So the president is putting a lot of attention to ensuring that we can manufacture lithium locally and we have the batteries to actually power ambition.
That's wonderful. I like this, the focus on really protection of the asset, recognizing the huge implications if it goes down. And I also like your link to energy, and I'm going to come back on that. But Lance, let me turn it over to you. We often in our development discussions recognize that digital has a huge role to play. And sometimes I fear that we look at it as almost like a magic bullet. If only digital was there, we could solve almost any problem. But you work in some of the most difficult parts of the world. What have you seen be some of the most effective measures or interventions or solutions when it comes to addressing a humanitarian situation?
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Minister. And thank you all for being here today as well. So NetHope is a membership organization of 65 of the world's leading relief, development, and conservation groups. Collectively, our membership works in over 190 countries and serves on the order of 1.6 billion people. So I was pleased to hear what the minister was saying about the push to make the case for critical infrastructure and critical protections for that. In our programming, we've been trying to make the case for a number of years that the humanitarian sector, the development sector, and civil society as a whole, at least as represented through our network, if we're serving 1.6 billion people across the full spectrum of our member organizations, then that should be categorized as critical infrastructure. There are people whose lives and livelihoods depend upon that level of service every day. And as many of you, of course, know, coming from your ministries and coming from government, civil society is increasingly the indispensable partner that you need to help deliver that last kilometer of services, that last mile of services to folks in those communities. So we're working across our global membership and in partnership with the tech sector to really try and invest in that resiliency at the local level, that resiliency throughout the full delivery chain of aid, of development, and local empowerment, because the future, as we're all seeing, is increasingly going to be that governments are going to be working more closely with civil society partners, going to be working more closely with small and medium enterprises and private technology interests to really help drive their development goals and drive their resiliency goals. So if we're not thinking up front about how to invest in that chain to make it more resilient, then we're going to miss something important here, because these things are often very hard to retroactively engineer into the system. And so the work that we've been doing, for example, we have a program that we've been working on in emergency response and connectivity for many, many years now. We're migrating that program away from connectivity and more towards skills building, because in our organization, we work on the people, process, and technology scale, but we probably spend more energy on the people and process, and the technology is sort of comes through our technology partners, the big Silicon Valley companies, as well as the incredible innovation that's happening in civil society to try to understand how we can do better service delivery, use the tools more effectively. So this question of resilience is not an afterthought. It's not something that we can hope for the best and retroactively hope that it will all work out. We've really got to be thinking thoughtfully about how you can bounce back after downtime. And of course, we've got a lot of organizations that have been working in this space to really try to make sure that people are prepared, because infrastructure sometimes operates by itself, but often does not. There needs to be humans in the loop. And also making sure that that once you've got the infrastructure protected, that the services delivered over that infrastructure can also be there and get to people. And that's the space where many of the international organizations we work with, which include the International Red Cross and names like CARE and Oxfam and Save the Children and other groups that you know of, that's the space where they're working, often in close partnership with governments, to really help make sure that citizens get served no matter what the circumstances, and partnering with government to make sure that services come back online in the event of an outage or downtime.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Lance. And maybe, Minister, building on Lance's comments, is there any particular use case or innovation that comes to your mind where government, civil society, private sector has partnered in order to address a group in Nigeria to help them build their resilience in the digital technology space?
No, absolutely. I think what we've done really well, which I still believe is actually still producing results for us, is investment in the foundational digital infrastructure. So I think the government painstakingly delivered an interbank settlement system, which is an open system that gives the opportunity for the financial service sector to be able to be extremely innovative. So when most people talk about the fact that Nigeria has the highest number of unicorns on the African continent, people don't understand what actually led to that wave of innovation. It's not just the population. is the fact that the foundation is there for people to build digital financial services. So you now see today where young entrepreneurs are building solutions to help people across the country bank better, or perhaps being able to access credit. You have a company that came into Nigeria, I think, under 5 years, and they were able to start banking most people in the rural area. It's called OPay, because they could now provide financial services more efficiently. But it wasn't just the interbank settlement system that led to that. I think the digital ID system that the World Bank and EU supported in Nigeria also opened up opportunity for us to be a lot more innovative in the digital space. Because today in Nigeria, we can now digitally ID over 120 million adults. And by being able to digitally ID them, it means that we can create new solutions to serve these people regardless of where they find themselves. So when you take those two and you bundle them together, digital ID, interbank settlement system, you have an economy with a platform for innovation. The only thing that is still missing, however, is our data exchange system. The ability to be able to seamlessly exchange data across different government functions, government departments, which would then allow businesses to be able to ID citizens better, which means they can better provide services to them. And we've seen the impact of this in the agriculture ecosystem, for instance, where people came up with innovative ideas around crowdfunding to support farmers to be able to raise resources to be able to cultivate and till their grounds. Right? These innovations were, as simple as they are, weren't that easy and possible before the interbank settlement system. Because once you can ID these people, you can seamlessly transfer money to them, then you have an ecosystem that allows to be able to do much more in society. So I think for me, government's role is truly building that enabling environment. And when we talk about enabling environment, I think sometimes we limit it to policy. It's actually not all the time that it's about policy. It's about using policy to deliver the foundational infrastructure, which is also why I think DPI is extremely important. DPI, in my mind, is a new way of reimagining the way we use technology in government. It's not different from e-government, but it offers a framework that can allow us to think more foundationally about how we use technology. Because you find silos in most governments in terms of how technologies are used, which doesn't empower the government, but it also doesn't empower the economy as well. So this is the kind of success that I think we've seen in Nigeria that we would like to build on to ensure that technology can continue to serve our people.
I think it's really interesting how you lay out the ecosystem, but also link in many ways to an operating model that works for government that goes beyond what we think about is government's role.
Absolutely.
And I also like that you're able to identify what do you need to now also focus on the digital exchange part in order to complete the process. Lance, I want to turn to you. Thinking about ecosystem and operating model, what do you see as the main strength of NetHope's ecosystem operating model, and what is the next horizon, if you will, for you to take it to the next level?
NetHope has, since its founding 24 years ago, as a partnership between the tech sector and civil society, has always focused on peer learning, upskilling, the idea that a community that comes together in shared problem solving will learn faster across the full community if there's transparency, there's trust and information sharing. So we've always been this space where you can focus on trying to move a broad agenda quickly. And that's been quite effective for international civil society. Their digital transformation, the NetHope organizations score notably higher up the curve of digital maturity than many other organizations do. And we believe that that's because of their participation, their knowledge sharing. So we'd like to take that and open it up. You know, there's a whole ecosystem of organizations working around the world that would benefit from knowledge sharing. We're increasingly doing more with governments. We've had a number of interesting meetings with ministries and others to really talk about how do we widen this space for collaboration. Because, you know, as you say, government is finding itself pulled into new roles. And sometimes it's appropriate for government to stretch there, and sometimes government's not the best tool. Sometimes it's best for the private sector, or it's best for civil society. And often a partnership is going to be the way you're going to discover what that modality is. So the operating model that we've always pursued as a network organization is really to try to surface those learnings, try to create a space so that innovation can be used appropriately and not indiscriminately. People tend to idolize innovation as a monolithic universal good, and we like to think sometimes it is if it's applied well and appropriately, and sometimes you need to, if you don't take that step, you might find yourself in trouble later because you've just applied things in circumstances where they don't always fit. So that idea of localization, local data, local knowledge, informing those systems, that's an area where we're continuing to work, and we want to try to do more of that because we think more of that's going to be needed as these new roles get defined for our institutions as well as for the other actors, civil society and the private sector.
Also very interesting, the changing definition of roles as we step into this space. I like that you also emphasized it. Minister, I want to finish off with you on something that you mentioned before, which was the important link between digital and energy. And here we know that many people around the world, the billions and in fact millions in Nigeria, still lack access to digital and even energy. And we also know that digital and energy go hand in hand, and there's a lot of technology advances that we're also trying to promote now as we have stepped up under what we call Mission 300, which is to increase the access to electricity on the continent, but also digital while we're doing so. What is Nigeria doing, one of the largest countries, of course, in the continent, to try to close the gap when it comes to access? And again, maybe just what is the one biggest innovation you see as you pursue access in digital for the energy? I liked your focus on renewable, sustainable solutions, but also the investment in battery. Anything else that you want to highlight?
I think talking about access, definitely energy is also foundational. But beyond just energy being foundational, I think what we've established in Nigeria that I would like to challenge everyone on, especially for Africa, is that the narrative that Africa is mobile first needs to change. Because that's not the narrative that we can sustain. When you look at the fact that in a country like Nigeria, 17.9 is the average age, the workforce of the future will come from many of these countries. There's absolutely no way where we'll limit these young people to mobile. We have to be able to create opportunity for them where the sort of connectivity they have access to should allow them to be able to participate in artificial intelligence, to be able to explore robotics, and to be able to create innovations that will require high-speed connectivity, but also significant compute as well. Which is why for us, the project we're working on with the bank is extremely important. Investing in 90,000 kilometers of fiber optic network to ensure that we can reach all of our people wherever they are with quality and meaningful connectivity. Meaningful being the key word. There's absolutely no way where we can also secure our borders. There's no way where Nigeria can do well in mining if we're based just on mobile, because connectivity is required for mining. Most African countries can do much more in agriculture. We need to be able to feed ourselves without precision agriculture or smart agriculture. There's absolutely no way we can compete. And you're not going to be able to do all of that without robust connectivity infrastructure. So we're very aggressive about this. And beyond that, we're also investing in 7,000 towers to ensure that the remote places can be reached. We're leveraging satellites to reach them. But we understand that in all of this, without energy, we're going to struggle, which is why we're extremely fortunate to have the president we have today, because one of the first things he did was to prioritize compressed natural gas. Of course, this is not clean enough, but Nigeria has significant stock of it. And we believe that that can be our transition form of energy. And whilst we're doing that, exploring solar and so many other things, we have one of the best quality of lithium in the world. This has been established. So there's absolutely no way we should struggle with batteries. So we need to start local manufacturing of batteries, which is a critical part of cleaner form of energy that will power most of our digital infrastructure. in the future. And it's also the only way we can create the sort of jobs that we need for our teeming young population. We have to find ways to create that opportunity locally. So I'm extremely excited that a lot of what we're doing at the minute in the country, led by the president, may not be popular, whether it's the reforms that is put in place, which is going extremely well, but also the focus on foundational infrastructure. We think if we can stay on this for the next 3 to 5 years, our economy is going to go to where we truly believe it should be, which is on the other side of being $1 trillion economy. It's already about, I think, $400 million or so. We think it can be much more than that, and that's what we're working towards in the country.
Wonderful, Minister. Thank you so much. And I love your connection to jobs. And I love your connection of infrastructure to jobs as well as agriculture, because we believe both are very, very important and critical for being able to create the number of jobs that need to be created in the future. Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you. And I hope you enjoyed this. 2 very important topics that we touched upon. One is, how does the World Bank help countries when they need us the most, whether it's in a crisis or whether it's to step up to the next step? And how do we do it by building resilience when it comes to digital technology? So I want to sum up by 3 priorities that we see as we try to also step into this space. First and foremost, and we talked about it, enhance the resilience by design. This means that ensuring networks and the systems are resilient, because when they collapse or when they are impacted, the impacts are huge. And the second is to deal with the availability and confidentiality by investing in things like cybersecurity. That's number 1 priority. Number 2 priority that we see is using it as an enhancement for resilience of sectors, communities, and livelihoods. And Lance, you really spoke to this. And we saw it also during the pandemic. Those countries that had digital registries, for example, and payment systems were able to reach 3 times more beneficiaries than those that didn't. So recognizing that investing in digital resilience also protects you when you need it the most. And the job creation model, shifting really towards the job creation model of the future, because at the end of the day, resilience and livelihoods are best met through job creation. And then finally, driving the digital inclusion. Here we know that we still have too many people who are offline, who need to come online. The youth of today are looking for opportunities where digital will play a huge role. So we need to continue to focus on that. One way we're trying to do it is to really focus on setting bold goals, but also bold targets. So one of the targets that I'm personally very excited about is that we're trying to make sure through our efforts, we can connect an additional 300 million women to digital connectivity by 2030, because we think that enhances female labor force participation, which improves the economic empowerment and creates also the economic stimulus that we need in the future. So thank you so very much. Thank you for sharing your insights. Both of you brought so much interesting light to this discussion this morning, bringing out ideas and examples of how you're working in moving an incredible powerhouse like Nigeria using digital, and the very good work through the network lands that you're doing in some of the most difficult places in the world, but made easier thanks to digital technology and resilience. Right. So thank you, and thank you for tuning in, and have a great second day of your summit. Thank you.